So we're talking about this positivity, this shift of consciousness, but in a very tangible way, not in a woo-woo way, which nothing wrong with that. But this is sort of a culmination of all the talks that I've been doing over the last 15 days. We have to start about 1 million years ago, 1.5 million, when Homo erectus transferred to Homo sapiens, and we were and are a product of that. So we developed out of this civilization, out of this animal inherited sort of traits of these animals. So we have to understand what the environment was that we developed and why we developed these traits. And they're all developed to survive. So these are our biogenic traits. So if you think about the environment we lived in and everything we needed to survive, we developed. So we can see as much light as our bodies need to in order to survive. That's why we see the range of light we see. That's why we can touch the size of particles we can touch. That's why we can hear the sound waves that we can hear. So it's all developed for us to survive. And then there's traits like bonding in tribes, the desire to reproduce, the desire for high caloric foods. These are all biogenic traits. No matter where you are in the world, if you're a human, you have these traits. You can be in Antarctica, Africa, India, Europe, doesn't matter. If you're a human, you have these traits. And this is our coding. This is our subconscious behavioral patterns. And we're being puppeted by these behaviors through positive or negative feelings. So we get directed. Hey, this is positive, go do it more. Hey, that's negative, probably stay away from it. But they're suggestions, not commands. We live by them as though they're commands now, and they're dictating our life. Now, we developed civilization. About 10,000 years ago, we started to farm, which brings a lot of benefits to it. But it changed how we're living, how we're naturally designed to live. It started to change. And what our civilization did, it started to look for solutions to the feelings we have. So I feel bad when I don't have access to food. And so civilization created the whole food industry, from farming all the way to, refrigeration, restaurants, delivery of foods. All this developed because of my discomfort to not having it. And so civilization went around fixing or thinking it was fixing these problems. My body sends me a signal when the temperature's changing. So I don't go too far out of my homeostasis and get into a dangerous situation. So it gives me a signal. So civilization reacted to that. Hey, let's create air conditioning. Let's create clothing. Let's create all these things, heaters, and all these things that make me feel comfortable, stay in this range of homeostasis. And so our civilization is going along developing this. We also have the pleasure response. So we are puppeted by pleasure signals. Go and do this because it's pleasurable. And so civilization started finding things, honing in on things that were pleasurable to us. And we started to consume these, and they started to get more efficient at it. And they became so efficient that now everything is at its addictive level. If we eat a piece of fruit, fantastic. But to have sugar now in its raw form in almost every food we have creates an addictive behavior. We don't get away from it. Our bodies actually crave it. And so this civilization is developing as a reaction to these biogenic traits, which are dictated by these emotions, which come from our hormones and neurotransmitters. They're our feelings. So now we're here being puppeted in this world. It's an environment that is a reaction to this, to these feelings, to these emotions. There was a great quote by George Washington, who said, people are about as happy as they make up their minds to be. And so this is where I want to start diverging the conversation. to understand why that's the case. So we have a biogenic traits, we have a civilization that reacted to it, and now we have this animal which has the biogenic traits, the subconscious traits. There's something operating it. It's our identity or personality or ego, whatever you want to call it. It's who you are. You're driving this animal that we call human, the Homo sapien. So where did that come from? It depends where you were born, the environment you were born into. These are sociogenic traits. The society I grew up in dictates my behavior, who I am. So I'm reacting to this society. I'm learning from it. So the school I went to, the friends I had, the socioeconomic level, my religion, whatever it is, that's conditioning my behavior. And that's developing my identity. Now, in addition to that, we have the idiogenic traits. These are my individual reactions to things that happened as I was growing up through a few major stages of brain development, primarily the first 7 years when you're in a more of a subconscious brain wavelength. You're patterning things, understanding things, and you're learning how to survive. So remember, we're designed for scarcity. Amygdala shows everything as fear. So if that's my perception of the world, that it's all potential danger, I'm now in survival of this dangerous environment. So I'm going through learning survival techniques, and they're how I behave, how I interact with people. So one of our fundamental core fears is being kicked out of the tribe. So I want to make sure that I'm part of the tribe. So I develop a behavior that keeps me in part of that tribe, valuable to that tribe, that fits in the socio-genic traits of my culture, of my tribe. So I'm now performing a personality layered on top of my biogenic traits, and I'm trying to survive. And I'm not even aware of this. And this is where it gets tricky, because I'm not aware of it. So what we've done in our modern world, the life I'm now living, I'm following this story that's dictated by my society, developed over many, many years, that I should have a certain life, and that life will bring me happiness, which happiness is really just a chemical reaction. There's another joy or bliss or love. That's different. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about chemical happiness, which we're all chasing. And if I follow the story of my culture, which is I go to school, I get a job, I get married, I have children, I make money, I travel a little bit, I do some fun things, and then I retire and die. That's the story of my civilization. Nothing wrong with it. It's fine. And I'm not suggesting anyone should follow a different story. But what we've done in enforcing that story, it's put these levels of attainment I have to reach. Also, the civilization, the comfort that our civilization has brought me, is also putting me out of rhythm with my natural circadian rhythm, which is the rhythm that I'm designed for. So we have a natural rhythm, which is our circadian rhythm. And so now we have things like light, electricity, which means I can stay up later. You know, I don't have to go to bed or retreat when it's dark. So now I'm staying up later, I'm not sleeping as much, I'm not in my rhythm, which the circadian rhythm is triggered by light, and so my microbiomes are off. All these things are off. I'm also I'm also separate from nature. We have, if you walk around your neighborhood, depending on where you live, you might have little spurts of nature trying to push their way up in these gardens, but it's mostly concreted over or homes. So I'm not with nature, and we know that nature can actually balance us out on an atomic level, on the core building blocks of who we are. They vibrate a certain way, and there's electrons in it that are positively charged. And so if we lose it, negatively charged, so we lose them, we become positively charged. But nature can give us these electrons back. There's actually cultures that now are understanding this. In Japan, it's called Shinrin-yoku, forest bathing. They're sending you into nature to pick up these ions and to balance yourself so we don't get too stressed. Our civilization did a great job of eradicating a lot of these dangers, these real dangers. So I'm a weak animal compared to a lot of other animals. We don't have claws or horns or armor. So I developed these traits to survive. And it being a dangerous environment, we reacted to it with our civilization by eradicating. Most animals over 100 pounds are gone. Most dangerous ones, they're either in cages or they're diminishing, the levels of them are diminishing. So I'm getting pretty safe. But that didn't stop me from being stressed. We're not just stress-free now. It's actually got worse because now my amygdala is still running the show, but it doesn't have so much real danger. It has perceived danger. So I can conjure up a scenario in my head and my body can't tell the difference. So it reacts as though I'm in an actual stressed state. We do have real danger, obviously. You know, our industry created things that allow us to operate outside our natural or innate abilities. So if I run as fast as I can and I fall, I might hurt myself, but I'm not likely to fall apart. But if I'm in a car traveling at 100 miles an hour and I have impact, I would fall apart. So I'm exceeding the capacity, the tensile strength of my muscles and tendons and ligaments and bones. I'm exceeding that so it doesn't have the capacity to hold it together. So this is what our civilization has developed. It's also, now I'm stressed and now I'm trying to go for this pleasure, this pleasurable desires, and I'm wanting more because I'm not ever satiated. If I eat something pleasurable, it doesn't scratch the itch. It doesn't make it go away. It makes me want it more. And so I become addicted to it. And it's so available now. I have an environment where it's so available. That coding is actually hurting me. The coding to want it is hurting me. If we lived in an environment where it wasn't really that available, that coding to want it, to desire it, would actually motivate me to go get it. But we don't live in that environment anymore. We live in an environment of this abundance of it. And like I mentioned, it's now at an addictive level. And I have a lot of more stress. I have perceived stress, and I'm trying to mask it with all these things that I'm consuming, and it's not going away. It's just perpetuating the situation. And I'm also trying to fit into the story of my culture. So we become overwhelmed and stressed. So what do we do about it? There is another way forward. And so that's what I want to look at. And as questions come up, throw them into the comments on Instagram. There is a little card with the question mark in it. There's the comments on Facebook. Or you can just ask them afterwards in the comments and I'll try and get to them. But I'm moving fast because there's a lot I want to get through because this is the important part. This transition here. There's a lot of self-help out there. And what they're trying to do is change your behavior so you produce more happy chemicals, right? Which is fine. That's great. It's great. And I want to talk about that because I think that's a valid and very valiant path to follow. And I think we should follow it. But there's another way to go, which is to transcend it, to transcend this human behavior, to transcend this behavior of your identity, this glass ceiling that you operate in because your identity has a limit, has a range of its capacity where it's comfortable to go. So remember I said our identities develop out of survival. If I'm funny and you like me, I'm going to keep being funny, so then you keep liking me. And now I'm going to try that behavior on different people. That's keeping me survived, it's keeping me safe, it's keeping you want to be with me. But that's now my limit. And again, I'm not saying these are bad, you just want to expose them, you want to bring them into the light so you can see it. Because you don't have freedom unless you expose it. So I'm this identity that is sort of operating, and the self-help is trying to make me release these great chemicals, right? And as I said, it's good, and we'll get to that. But there's transcending it, there's not being it, there's rising above it. So letting this emotion do its thing, flow through me, because I'm having a human experience. I'm not going to not have a human experience if I'm a human. There's only one way to not have a human experience or to stop having a human experience, and that's death. So we want to avoid that option, which means we need to transcend it. So I will still get triggered, I will still get an emotional response if my brain, my amygdala, sees a potential threat, real or perceived. So if someone's yelling at me, they're maybe not going to actually attack me, but I'm perceiving it as that. And so I'm getting this reaction. That's a very powerful chemicals will flood through my body, and I'll prepare myself to flee or fight.